Hee-ju is a modest girl who lost her voice after a traumatic accident in her childhood. She always dreamt of becoming a news anchor, so now she acts as a sign language interpreter for a news channel alongside her friend and fellow news reporter Yuri. However, as she is reporting the weather one day, the screen glitches and the scene where she is denoting a mountain by flipping out her middle finger is played on repeat. The director is furious with Hee-ju, so he doesn't let her translate the next and more important piece of news, which is going to be delivered by the spokesperson of the Office of the President of Korea, Se-yeon. Se-yeon is the most popular man in all of Korea because of his looks and personality, and the girls are crazy about him even though he has a wife whose face has not been disclosed to the world. He has been briefing the media about government's tough decisions since a long time, and today is no exception. Today he is in the media tower to tell everyone about a pirate attack on one of their country's ships. The pirates have taken the Korean people on it as hostages, and they are demanding release of some terrorists and ransom to let the hostages go. However, Se-yeon shocks everyone by saying that the government will never negotiate with terrorists, and they will do whatever they can to ensure the safety of their citizens. Hee-ju hears this too, and she is not happy with Se-yeon's attitude, so she flips him the bird before leaving. Once Se-yeon has finished broadcasting his message, he tells all the media people in the room that the government is going to impose an emergency on all news outlets to avoid panic and keep the public morale high. He then goes back to his office, his phone constantly buzzing because of calls, but he doesn't pick it. Now let's go back to the reason why Hee-ju showed him the middle finger. Turns out, she is Se-yeon's wife, and though their marriage is a secret hidden from the world, it is not even worth even mentioning. Hee-ju's mother-in-law insults her, saying that she is a liability to her son and his father, who is aiming to be Korea's next president. She tells Hee-ju to quit her job now before her secret is revealed, and even Hee-ju's mom agrees with her, saying that she will quit it soon. Hee-ju's mother-in-law asks if her selective mutism has gotten any better, and her own mom insults her, saying that the girl is better off not speaking anything. Once the mother-in-law leaves, Hee-ju's mom curses her, saying that she should not have stolen another woman's man if she could not even win his heart after 3 years of marriage. After this incident, Hee-ju decides to go to her apartment, but on the way, her car suddenly starts malfunctioning. She struggles to keep its electronics under control, and then even the brakes start giving up. She somehow avoids an accident and stops the car in an isolated place, but the doors don't open, and the radio starts broadcasting parts of Se-yeon's speech about not negotiating with terrorists. Hee-ju is already panicking, but then she recalls a new presentation she did about cars being hacked by sending malware in their software. She realizes that her car has been hacked too, so she can't get out of it, and a truck drives straight towards her. On the other hand, Se-yeon has no idea about her situation, as he is busy receiving reports from his team and trying to come up with a plan. One of his subordinates tells him that the people have discovered his secret past online, and they know that he is a negotiation expert trained by the FBI itself. He jokingly tells Se-yeon that people are demanding to send him to negotiate the situation, but he has to swallow his laughter because Se-yeon is dead serious. He then tells his team to get some of his slightly morphed funny pictures deleted and goes to his cabin. On the other hand, Hee-ju is saved from the speeding truck by just a few inches, but then another danger surfaces. She finds a masked man staring at her from a distance, and then he menacingly starts walking towards her. She tries to lock the car doors, but she can't control them, and the masked man gets to her. Soon, Se-yeon receives a call while he is reading a report, and since it is from an unknown number with another country's code, he decides to pick it up. From the other hand, a distorted voice stutters, telling him that he will kill his wife. Before Se-yeon can ask anything, his phone's battery dies out. He immediately connects it to a power bank and contacts his mother and mother-in-law to learn about Se-yeon. His mother-in-law lies to him that Hee-ju is at her place and she is going to stay for dinner, which makes Se-yeon a bit relieved. He then asks his staff to track the number, but when he returns to his cabin, the kidnapper has called him again. Se-yeon asks the kidnapper if he has already killed his wife, because he was quite confident earlier. He then says that he has no way to even know who his wife is, and then tells him to stop prank calling him because he is busy. However, the kidnapper dares him to hang up his call because he has a knife pointed at Hee-ju's throat. He asks Se-yeon how much ransom can he pay for his wife, and Se-yeon, who still doesn't take him seriously, says that he won't even pay ransom in Monopoly money. Hee-ju is hearing all this while driving the car, and as the call ends, the frustrated kidnapper starts strangling her. She struggles to stay alive and keep the car under control, but the kidnapper leaves her quickly, saying that this is just a warning. He threatens her that if her husband doesn't stop ignoring him, she will surely die, and only one person will be to blame for it. He calls Se-yeon again, but since he doesn't pick up, the kidnapper stabs the back of Hee-ju's seat, accidentally grazing her neck. He then tells Hee-ju that his phone can't be tracked so easily, and they won't be found as long as they keep moving. He keeps on calling Se-eon, and then his subordinate accidentally picks it up. Se-eon has had enough of the kidnapper, so he tells him to kill his wife if he wants and call him again when there is a corpse. The call ends with that, and while the kidnapper is frustrated, Hee-ju is devastated. She starts speeding uncontrollably and doesn't stop even when the kidnapper tries to interfere. She sends the car flying over a speed breaker, knocking out the kidnapper from the impact before stopping. Suddenly, the car radio starts broadcasting news that the situation with the terrorists has been resolved and all the hostages are safe for now. After giving a speech to the press about the situation, Se-eon decides to head home, but a journalist named Jin had been stalking him outside the office, and he approaches him for an exclusive interview. However, it is the same guy who posted his morphed pictures, so Se-eon drives away, but then he suddenly puts the car in reverse and tells Jin to get in. Se-eon then speeds through the highway, telling the scared Jin to investigate the number of the kidnapper. Even though he thinks it is just a phishing scam, he has a bad feeling about it and tells Jin to get to the depth of the things. He then drops him on the side of the road and hurries to his house, where Hee-ju has already returned after freeing herself from the kidnapper. After she takes a bath and applies first aid to her injuries, she starts preparing dinner, and Se-eon arrives there soon. He is relieved to see her, and as he sits down, he tells her about the ridiculous call he got from the kidnapper, but says that it must be a hoax because she is safe here. Hee-ju doesn't reply, not that she can, and keeps stuffing her bowl with rice. She ignores Se-eon and keeps eating by herself, when he gets a call from his right-hand man Jae saying that they can't trace the kidnapper's number. Just then, Jin texts him, saying that it is a virtual number based in the US, so they need to track it while on the call. Se-eon tells this to his subordinate, who says that the call needs to last at least 10 minutes to track the caller. However, Se-eon already has some hints. He is certain that the caller was a male who was on drugs, and he was trying to shake him up in the time of a national emergency. Even though Hee-ju is safe for now, Se-eon wants to put a security team around her without letting anyone know that she is his wife. He suddenly gets an idea and decides to take Hee-ju along as the sign language interpreter for his upcoming meeting with the British ambassador. He goes to Hee-ju and tells her to be ready for the meeting, and adds that she should not get wrong ideas because it is just an official event and not a couple dinner. After washing the dishes, Se-eon goes to her room. Her mom calls her, and when she doesn't pick up, she texts her that Se-eon was looking for her earlier. She then calls her again and starts telling her to get some plastic surgery before the election campaign start. She even tells her to go to a fertility specialist and baby trap Se-eon, but Hee-ju gets frustrated at that and throws her phone under the pillow. She then starts recalling the day of her wedding 3 years ago. It was just a contract wedding, and Se-eon gave Hee-ju the contract which stated that she cannot initiate divorce or reveal her identity while they are married, or she would have to pay a penalty of 2 billion won. He then put a ring around her finger, telling her that she is just a hostage to him, so she shouldn't consider herself as his wife. 3 years later, they are just strangers living under a roof. The next day, Hee-ju goes to her sign language sector and starts interpreting the violent language from a crime film, much to the shock of her instructor. The old lady tells her to stop practicing such scary things and go back to practicing news with Se-eon's videos because he was always her idol, but Hee-ju doesn't want to hear about him any longer. Soon, the day of the party comes and Se-eon and Hee-ju walk inside hand in hand. They go to the ambassador and Se-eon wishes him happy birthday before introducing himself to his wife. Since his wife is deaf, Hee-ju acts as the sign language interpreter, and both the ambassador and his wife think that she is Se-eon's wife. She tells them she is just here as an interpreter, and there is no personal relationship between her and Se-eon, which shocks the old couple. Hee-ju is a bit taken aback on seeing their reaction, and he doesn't know what to say in response. So he starts speaking in Korean and says that his wife is disabled too, and she is his weakness. He then adds that he doesn't bring her in front of the world because he doesn't want her to face any attack from his political rivals. Hee-ju signs his speech with pain in her eyes, but the ambassador tells Se-eon that he never thought he would be a hopeless romantic. Once that is done, Hee-ju starts drinking, but Se-eon comes to stop her. He tells her that she needs to stay sober throughout the party, but she tells him that she wants to go home now that her work is done. Se-eon tells her that she must stand quietly by her side, and she suddenly snaps. She lashes at him for lying to the ambassador about how much he cares for his wife when he doesn't. She tells him that she can't speak, and that doesn't mean that she doesn't feel emotions like normal people. The lies he spoke hurt her, and she curses him, saying that maybe he was talking about some other wife, because he doesn't care about her. She leaves him, still pondering about what she meant. Because he is not really great at sign language, and the only thing he knows is that Hee-ju cussed him out. She goes to the bathroom, and has a breakdown, while Se-eon calmly sips wine by himself. Suddenly, he gets a call from the kidnapper, who doesn't speak anything for a while. Se-eon taunts him, saying why did he fail to kill his wife yesterday? He says that he didn't have much time earlier, but today he can freely hear his rambling. The kidnapper suddenly speaks up, saying that it is true that he doesn't have much to do at the party, and then remarks that he did a solid job acting as a romantic man who loves his wife. Se-eon suddenly starts getting tense as the kidnapper says that he can still see him roaming near the snack station. Se-eon starts looking around, asks how the hell did he get in here, but the kidnapper says that he should be more curious about what he is going to do to his wife. Se-eon's breathing grows erratic as he begins to search the party for the kidnapper, and suddenly, he finds a guy on the phone. He chases after him and finds him in the bathroom, but turns out it is another guy who was just talking to his wife. Se-eon keeps searching for the kidnapper while on the call with him, telling him that he can't do anything to his wife because he doesn't know who she is. The kidnapper tells him that Hee-ju is his wife, but not really. He says that Hong Ina, the daughter of the owner of Chungwon Daily News, was supposed to be his real wife, but she ran away right before their wedding and no one knows her location now. At the last moment, Se-eon decided to marry Ina's sister Hee-ju as a hostage instead. Se-eon completely freezes as the kidnapper unravels his past and says that the public will love it if his story gets exposed. The kidnapper asks him to say something, and Se-eon asks him what the hell does he want. The kidnapper laughs, saying that he wants him to get rid of Hee-ju since he doesn't want her anyway, and get back with his real fiancée. However, the greatest plot twist in the history of K-drama comes next, as it turns out Hee-ju is the one calling Se-eon through the phone and using the inbuilt voice morphing tool to hide her identity. Yesterday, when Se-eon told the kidnapper to kill her and call him again when he has the corpse, something snapped inside Hee-ju. The selective mutism that had tied her down for all this time evaporated in front of her rage, and she yelled at the kidnapper to call her husband again. She called him herself, and the kidnapper had the time of his life watching the drama unfold. However, Se-eon did not pick up the call, and Hee-ju impatiently kept pressing the accelerator, which got her car into the accident. She saw that the kidnapper was knocked out, so she took his phone and decided to use it to get back at her trash husband. Now, she tells him to return things as they were if he doesn't want his father's election campaign to be spoiled because of his scandal. She keeps acting threatening, but doing that is not easy for her sensitive heart. Soon she realizes that her 10 minutes are about to end, so she gives Se-eon till tomorrow to do as she said or arrange 2 billion won in cash. However, Se-eon retaliates, telling the kidnapper that he can deal with any news about him in an instant, and it will be no big deal getting rid of the blackmailer too. He says that he won't agree to the stupid demand of abandoning his wife, and that shocks Hee-ju. She asks him if he even knows that his wife was in mortal danger last night and she couldn't even beg for her life, but he just told the kidnapper to call him when there was a body. She says that if it was not for the slippery road, Hee-ju would really have died, and then suddenly she hears a loud thud as Se-eon punches the wall. He still thinks that he is talking to the kidnapper, so he says that he has never been more interested in another person before. He promises that he won't get him arrested but catch him and deal with him personally. Hee-ju is confused, but then she sees that her time limit is up, so she hurriedly cuts the call. She doesn't understand what Se-eon meant just now, and wonders if he fell for her trap. As she comes out of the washroom, still shaky from the call, she finds Se-eon just around the corner. She tries to tiptoe away from him, but he spots her and takes her to a room nearby. Hee-ju is worried about what he is going to do, and he asks her to take out her phone. She brings her ordinary phone outside her purse, and he asks her to answer his questions using that. He asks her about the accident and the kidnapper, and Hee-ju tells him that something like that really happened. He spots her injuries and gets furious, asking if she saw the face of the man who did this. She tells him that his face was covered, and then Se-eon angrily asks her why did she not tell him that her life was in danger. Hee-ju wants to tell him that he was the one eager to have her killed, but doesn't say anything. Se-eon then tells her to always keep the bodyguard he will assign close to her and get her injuries checked at a hospital. He leaves the room with that, and Hee-ju is completely thrown off her rocker. Outside, Se-eon gets a call from his subordinate who tried to track the location of the kidnapper during the call but couldn't find anything. Se-eon sends him the call recording and tells him to remove the modulator from it. On the other hand, Hee-ju returns home and hears the parts of the recorded call where Se-eon appears scared. She laughs to herself and then thinks that he got angry because he considers her an object and he didn't like anyone else touching her. However, she decides that she doesn't care about what he likes or dislikes. Just then, Se-eon comes there, and Hee-ju hides the phone inside her purse in a hurry. He asks for her car keys and reaches out to her purse, so she panics and quickly covers it. She then gives him the car keys, wondering what he wants with them, but as she realizes that her voice may be recorded on the dash cam, She becomes worried and rushes downstairs. Meanwhile, in the parking, Saeon finds the car in bad shape and tries checking the dashcam. However, he finds nothing is recorded there, and when Hee-ju comes there, she is relieved that he didn't find out the truth. Suddenly, a biker comes right towards her, and Saeon pulls her to safety. He lashes out at the biker, who just apologizes and leaves. Saeon then tells Hee-ju that he will get her a new car, but she won't need to use it as she is going to stay at home from now on. She tells him that she wants to keep working, and he tells her to have a bodyguard with her at all times. She says it will expose their relationship and goes back, and Saeon decides to send the webcam to his trusted Junior J to get it restored. The next day, he goes to have lunch with his mom, who keeps ranting about Hee-ju and says that she should quit the job. She says that they should have never gone ahead with the marriage, and Saeon says that it was his parents' idea in the first place because the Chungwon News Group has helped his father a lot by burying his scandals. He then asks his mom who else knew about the truth of his marriage, and she says that only the immediate families know about this. Saeon thinks that the only person who could have tipped off the kidnapper is Ham-ina, and he decides to ask his mom for some advice because she is also a negotiation expert and a criminal psychoanalysis master. The next day, as Hee-ju goes to the court to act as an interpreter for a domestic violence case, Saeon receives a report from Jae, who couldn't find anything useful about the kidnapper. Just then, the bodyguard Saeon has assigned for Hee-ju texts him and says that the court session is over, so he asks her to bring Hee-ju back home. As the bodyguard is standing outside the washroom, she suddenly sees a fight between the couple from the court case earlier, so she goes to sort things out, but in that duration, a man begins approaching the washroom. Hee-ju thinks that his footsteps are oddly similar to the kidnapper, and she grows panicked. By the time her bodyguard returns to check on her, she is not there. The guard starts looking for her frantically and updates Saeon about the situation, but then she sees Hee-ju with a man. Turns out it is one of Hee-ju's old friends, Sang-woo, and right now they are catching up on lost time. As they chat and laugh together, the guards send him some pictures of them. This makes Saeon jealous because Hee-ju is looking like she is having fun with him, and he tells the guards to stop clicking pictures because it is not their job. Anyway, Sang-woo tells Hee-ju that he was worried when she went off the grid 3 years ago, but he was glad to see her on the news. He tells her that he is going to join the news channel she works for as crime reporter and asks for her number. After that, Hee-ju returns home, but her mother comes there just then with some lingerie and other stuff to help her seduce Saeon. Hee-ju asks her how can she be so desperate to sell her out, but her mom reminds him that when she married Saeon, she put a condition that her dad be put in the best nursing home. She reminds her that if she fails to keep her marriage, her father will be out on the streets, and Hee-ju can't say anything against that because her father is her weakness. Later, Hee-ju takes a bath and puts on the seductive clothes, but she is sure that once she gets out of this marriage, her mother will have nothing on her. On the other hand, Saeon is in his office, thinking about the lessons he got from his mom earlier. She told him that negotiations are not about dominating the other party but building a rapport with them. At exactly 10 o'clock, he gets a call from Hee-ju pretending to be the kidnapper, and she asks him if he has made up his mind. Saeon first asks how does she know about Hee-ju in the first place, but she replies that it doesn't matter because she just wants to bring him down. Saeon furiously replies that there will be no negotiation, but then Hee-ju sends him a picture of her thick thighs, and he asks her what is it. She asks him if he can't even identify the mole on his wife's thigh. Saeon gets furious at this and says that the photograph is definitely fake because he knows his wife well. However, this makes Hee-ju angry, and she tells him to see his wife's thigh for himself before saying anything and then cuts the call, only realizing later that she basically invited him to her bed. In that time, Jae and others have tracked the broad location of the call, and Saeon tells them to narrow down their search to a married or divorced guy who has previous molestation cases against him. On the other hand, Hee-ju is still flustered about what she did earlier when Saeon returns home. She hides under her blanket as he enters her room without permission and pulls away the blanket, causing him to fall over her in Kdrama style. Hee-ju gets panicked and scared, so Saeon backs up without checking what he came for. He tells her that he has got her a job as the sign language interpreter of the presidential office, but she needs to earn it if she wants to keep working. He goes outside to drink water, and on seeing the empty dinner table, he remembers a time 3 years ago when Hee-ju tried to kindle romance in their married life. But he clearly told her to stay out of his way because he doesn't need her to be his wife anywhere besides on paper. On the other hand, Hee-ju's heart is pounding rapidly after her interaction with Saeon, and she can't sleep at all. The next morning, she wakes up late, and to her shock, Saeon has not yet gone to office. He tells her that he will go in afternoon and says that he needs his breakfast first. Hee-ju goes to prepare it, but surprisingly, he comes there and takes charge of the cooking, treating her like his assistant. He then asks her about the man she met at the courthouse, and Hee-ju tells him that he is a college friend. He gets jealous when she says that he is a good man, and leaves, telling her to eat breakfast because he only prepared her share. On the other hand, Hee-ju's cheerful colleague Yuri is returning from her office, but she gets caught in a stampede of fans that causes her to trip, but luckily Sang-woo is there to hold her in Kdrama style. She immediately feels a spark between them, and once they head inside, she learns that he is going to be working on her show. She apologizes for dropping hot coffee on his hand and gives him her contact details. Meanwhile, Hee-ju goes to the nursing home, where her mentally infirm father is staying. He mistakes her for her mother, who left his years ago, and tells her that she should raise Hee-ju properly so that she can become a good news anchor. Hee-ju breaks down on hearing this, telling her dad that he should have kept her with him, because ever since she started living with her mom, she hasn't had a single day of peace. On the other side, Se-yeon sees a clear security video of the kidnapping and finds that the kidnapper got into car quite easily. He then goes to ask some questions to Jin, who says that if the kidnapper sent a sleazy picture of his wife and asked him to end the relationship, it is obviously an extramarital affair. This has made him insecure as he waits for the kidnapper's routine call. That comes exactly at 10 o'clock again. However, Se-yeon cuts the call first, and on second time he tells the kidnapper to call him again in 5 minutes, trying to take advantage of his desperation. Hee-ju is confused out of her mind on hearing his attitude, and she has no choice but to wait since he doesn't pick up the calls. When she calls him after 5 minutes, she tries to calm herself down, but then she imagines Se-yeon sitting right next to her, complimenting her for waiting patiently like a dog. She gets furious at him and says that he will regret it, but then suddenly hears a loud explosion that sends her ears ringing, and then finds that the call has been cut and Se-yeon's number is switched off. She gets worried and heads home, but gets even more flustered when she doesn't find Se-yeon there. She waits for him to come home and falls asleep on the couch, and when the morning comes, Se-yeon has still not returned home. She turns on the news to see if anything happened, and to her shock, there was an explosion and a fire in Se-yeon's office last night. The security footage shows a masked man entering the building disguised as a pizza delivery man and leaving just before the explosion, and the fact that someone was threatening Se-yeon through anonymous calls is also out. The media believes that the person who made the calls was behind the explosion, and they even play some part of the recorded calls. Hee-ju is shocked to see this, and just then, Se-yeon returns home, slightly injured and his shirt covered with dust and soot. He walks towards Hee-ju, who backs away, but then he places her on the table and gets close, saying that lately there have been too many things confusing him, and he is going to confirm the truth with his own eyes. Hee-ju doesn't understand what he is saying, and then he begins lifting up her dress. She tries to stop him, but he tells her that she can cooperate, or he will have to use force. The last night, as he was on the call with Hee-ju, someone knocked at the office door repeatedly, and when a guy went to see what was it, he saw a pizza box on the ground. Being the greedy glutton that he was, he brought the free pizza in, but as he opened the box cover, it exploded. Se-yeon later woke up in the hospital and Jae told him that no one was critically injured. He then showed him the clip of the kidnapper who deliberately stood before a security camera and signaled a death threat to Se-yeon. Se-yeon was not willing to take it sitting down, and he decided to play the kidnapper's game. So he informed the media about the threatening calls and the connection to the explosion before returning home. Back to the present, he takes Hee-ju to her bedroom, but she stops him from doing anything and uses a notebook to ask him if he is hurt. He briefly answers her questions before asking her if she is sure that she doesn't know the kidnapper. Hee-ju refuses, so he decides to check out the mole on her thigh. He slides his hand up her thigh, but Hee-ju panics, thinking that it will make things more complicated. She pushes him away and asks what the hell is doing right now. She asks why he is messing with her when it was the kidnapper who tried to harm them both. He asks her if she really doesn't know what he is talking about, and Hee-ju nods. Just then, Se-yeon gets a call Jae, so he apologizes to Hee-ju before leaving. He then learns that there is a serial arsonist in town, and the police are considering the explosion to be his work. They are also demanding the threatening calls recording to investigate, but Se-yeon tells Jae that it should not be leaked at all. However, he is certain that the kidnapper is not working alone, and there is someone else on his team. Se-yeon then goes outside to find Hee-ju cleaning the glass shards on the ground. He tells her to bring her phone because he needs to get it checked for hacking, and in the meantime he begins cleaning the glass. Hee-ju soon returns with her phone, and after he takes it to get it checked, she realizes that he might be thinking that her racy picture was clicked from it. She deletes the picture from the other phone in a hurry, and then keeps it back in its hidden place. On the other hand, Se-yeon sees that Hee-ju doesn't even have any apps on her phone that she uses except for a messaging app. He opens it, and curious about her relationship with Sang-woo, he begins searching through her chats. He finds an old picture showing them in front of the board of Nuri orphanage with some kids. He begins searching about the orphanage and then sees that Sang-woo has invited Hee-ju to lunch today. He then goes to Jae, who has found out about the explosive used to attack them, but he hasn't been able to make much progress about other things. Se-yeon thanks him for helping him out and then goes outside. He then gets a text from Yuri, who asks him out to lunch because she wants an interview. At the same time, Sang-woo and Hee-ju are having lunch at a fine restaurant, and when Yuri comes there, she is surprised to see them. Sang-woo says they are college friends, but Yuri thinks that they may be dating. She then starts acting shy, saying she is also on a lunch date with someone and asks them not to stare too hard at the guy. Soon, Se-yeon comes there and Hee-ju chokes on her drink as she sees him. She wonders what he is doing here and hopes that he pretends that he doesn't know her, but he comes straight to her, ignoring Yuri. In the end, he gets all four of them to share a table. Se-yeon is jealous of Sang-woo being close to Hee-ju, so he keeps behaving passively aggressively with him. He asks him what he does for a living and if he is married, and Sang-woo asks if he is interested in guys by any chance. Hee-ju can't stand how awkward things are getting, so she just pours her wine on the table and then excuses herself to the bathroom. She tries giving Se-yeon a signal, but he doesn't pay her any attention and then leaves to get a call from Jae, who was with the police officers to learn more about their findings when an explosion occurred nearby and he caught the man behind it single-handedly. He tells Se-yeon that they found a lot of homemade bombs at the man's house, but Se-yeon is certain that he is just the arsonist and not the kidnapper. He decides to go to the police station at once, but finds Hee-ju standing right behind him. She takes his phone and asks him what the hell he is doing here. She wants to know if he is suspecting her and Sang-woo, and Se-yeon takes his phone back. He tells her that she might know Sang-woo well and trust him, but he doesn't. He then asks her if she knows him well too, because they have seen each other for the last 20 years. He says that he thought he knew everything about her, but it seems that he was wrong. With that, he goes back to the table to get his coat, and Hee-ju gets a call from her sign language teacher to come to the center right now. Back at the table, Se-yeon decides to pay the bill and asks for Sang-woo's card, who gives him one that says he is a medical consultant. Just as Se-yeon leaves, Hee-ju returns, telling Sang-woo that she has to go to the sign language center, and she too leaves in a hurry. Se-yeon goes to meet Jae, who confirms that the man they arrested was the arsonist, and he is not happy with the kidnapper blowing up Se-yeon's office because he doesn't tolerate rivals on his turf. He says that the arsonist doesn't harm anyone's life in his actions, and he saw the other guy blowing up an old box in a park with some stray cats inside. After hearing this story, Se-yeon thinks that the kidnapper must be a psychopath, and he decides to change his approach in dealing with his calls. He then gives Jae Sang-woo's card and asks him to investigate him, but Jae already knows about him. Sang-woo is actually a fairly popular YouTuber who has a large female fanbase because he often displays his workout videos as a thirst trap. It seems that Jae is also gay for him, and Se-yeon tells him that this might be his dream job because he gets to find out everything about Sang-woo. On the other hand, Hee-ju had gone to meet her instructor, who was there to tell her about the recruitment letter from the president's office. However, Hee-ju had other things on her mind, like getting a divorce from the husband who wants her dead. Later, as she goes to receive her car from the repair shop, she finds that she can't get it to start. Instead, the door shuts down on her, and her car is lifted up into the workshop. Hee-ju panics because her car has been hacked again, and the radio begins playing the song Call Me Now. After giving her a tour of the workshop, the car returns to the gate, and as the guard opens it, the panicked Hee-ju drives away in a hurry. Once she reaches home, she takes out the modified phone and wonders if the kidnapper wants her to call Se-yeon. There are only 5 minutes left to 10, but Se-yeon comes home just then. Hee-ju decides to leave the house, making the excuse that she wants to buy some ice cream, but Se-yeon just returns her phone and then goes to buy ice cream for her. Hee-ju tries calling him from the modified phone while watching over him, but he doesn't pick up until he is out of sight. Hee-ju tries to hint at the explosion and tells Se-yeon to give in to her demands before he is harmed further, but Se-yeon is curious about how the kidnapper benefits from getting her to divorce Hee-ju. She is flustered to hear this and says that he doesn't even love her, so what's the point of staying married? Se-yeon says that it sounds like the kidnapper has some plans with Hee-ju, but he refuses to give her up, especially to a crazy man who resorts to kidnappings and bomb threats. He ends the call, saying that he doesn't have time since Hee-ju is waiting for some ice cream, and she is left confused by that. He soon returns with ice cream and beer, and then tells Hee-ju that in case someone tries to mislead her, he just wants her to know that he won't divorce her, because that will drag his name through the mud. She thinks that this is the reason he doesn't want to leave her, and then Se-yeon wipes the beer foam from her lips, calling her a clumsy idiot. He then asks her about the recruitment letter from the president's office and tells her to work her hardest to stay by his side. Hee-ju asks him why he wants her to stay by his side in the first place, and he tells her that the kidnapper knows a lot of things about him, and he hates it that he is right. He wants to show him that he is wrong, and he indeed gets along well with his wife. He then goes to her room, and the confused Hee-ju follows him to find him sleeping on her bed. He tells her to lie down next to him and asks if she is afraid that she will jump him. He tells her to sleep on the couch if she can't control her urges, and Hee-ju takes that as a challenge. She steals the pillow from him and lies down next to him. They look in each other's eyes, and Se-eon tells her that he doesn't know how safe staying at the house is, but tonight she can sleep in peace. He tells her to think of everything that happened on the day she got kidnapped and everything she heard that day as a bad dream and forget it. Hee-ju knows that he means the part where he told the kidnapper to kill her. She falls asleep soon, and then Se-eon leaves the room. In her dreams, Hee-ju sees her childhood, specifically the day she woke up in a hospital after an accident. Her mother was crying next to her, and when Hee-ju called to her, she told her to shut up and asked why the hell she did not die in the accident. The woman had married the owner of the Chungwon News Group after leaving Hee-ju's dad, and in the accident, her new husband's biological daughter went deaf and his son died. So she told Hee-ju to act like she is so traumatized that she can't speak, because earning the pity of her new husband was the only way she thought he would let them stay with her. Hee-ju wakes up in tears as the dream ends, thinking how she has been acting mute ever since then. Later, she gets a video call from her dad, but when she picks up the call, it turns out that it is from the kidnapper, who has infiltrated the nursing home and taken the old senile man hostage. He laughs that Hee-ju is using his phone to threaten Se-eon and asks what she is demanding from him. Hee-ju nervously says that she wants a divorce, and the kidnapper laughs, saying that he understands her motivation. He says that he approves of her and tells her to keep threatening Se-eon using the phone. However, he wants her to know that she can't back down midway and shows her some broken teeth as a warning. Hee-ju panics, thinking that the kidnapper harmed her dad, but he cuts the call, and she immediately rushes to the nursing home. She finds that the nurse left her dad alone when she went to bring some blankets, and he was unconscious when she found him. Luckily, he was not hurt, and the teeth must belong to someone else. Hee-ju is relieved to hear that, but when her dad begins repeating the kidnapper's line and tells her to call him, she has a breakdown. The cops then take her with them to file a report, but their car radio suddenly gets hacked, and Hee-ju realizes that this is a warning to her. She feels like throwing up, so the cops stop the car, but as she gets outside, she starts crying, realizing that she is in deep trouble now. Her life has never been easy, and she had no ally. Suddenly, a car comes there escorted by police motorbikes, and Se-eon comes out of it. The cops with Hee-ju wonder what is happening, and she is also confused about what he is doing here. Se-eon thanks the cops for their work and says that he will take Hee-ju with her now. They ask him how she is related to him, and Se-eon lifts Hee-ju up before telling them that she is his wife, shocking her. He helps her in the car and then tells the cops that he will come to make a report later and requests they keep his private details a secret till then. Once he gets back in the car, he tells Hee-ju that her father's nurse has his number as the emergency contact, so she called him when he went missing. He is certain that the kidnapper was behind it, and he tells Hee-ju that he will move her father to a more secure nursing home so she doesn't have to worry about it. Hee-ju suddenly starts crying loudly, and Se-eon is surprised that she can make noises. He gives her his hanky and asks her to cry her heart out, which she does. After that, Se-eon takes Hee-ju to an expensive hotel, and she doesn't understand why they didn't go home. He takes her to a room and tells her to freshen up while he calls the room service. Once Hee-ju returns, Se-eon tells her that he wants to have a proper conversation with her and not an interrogation. He says that at the rate things are going, he will have to seek police help against the kidnapper, but since she is also involved, the police will investigate her too. He asks her to reveal if she is hiding something before that, but she doesn't say anything. Se-eon is sure that she is hiding something, but he decides against pressuring her. Just then, the room service comes there with the food he ordered. Se-eon tells Hee-ju to eat, and then come down to attend a dinner with his family that won't be easy for her. He then goes to the private suite where his parents are having dinner. His dad tells him to call Hee-ju too, but he says that she is sick and asks him to get to the point because he doesn't have too much time. His father asks him to promote his election campaign even though he is a government employee, but Se-eon has no interest in that. Suddenly, Hee-ju comes there and apologizes for being late. Se-eon's father begins insulting her, saying that the chairman of the Chungwon News Group tricked them by sending his faulty daughter to their family, who can't even earn her keep. Se-eon gets furious at this and starts leaving, but his father tells him to stop. Suddenly, Se-eon asks one of his guards to take the camera from the paparazzi, who was clicking his family's pictures because his father wanted to use them to create rumors about him joining his election campaign. Se-eon tells his dad that he is not going to play his games and be his tool, which makes the man angry. He throws a glass at him, and Se-yeon instinctively moves to shield Hee-ju from it. His father comes to threaten that he can ruin his career, but Se-yeon tells him to look at his career first, because he had to rely on his father first and now on his son to become successful. Seeing the rage on his father's face, Se-yeon even starts suspecting him of being behind the kidnapper so that he can manipulate him. He tells his father that he is done and then leaves the room with Hee-ju. Once in the elevator, he holds her hand tightly, telling her to not think anything of his parents' words because they are not even worth respecting. Once they reach their home, Se-yeon gets a call from Jae, so he sends Hee-ju back in, who has a breakdown as she thinks about the kidnapper's warning. She decides to throw away the modified phone as trash, but Se-yeon meets her on the way and decides to throw it himself. They start playing a game of tug-of-war, but then Hee-ju gets a call, so she runs to the house. It is her sign language instructor and other colleagues who are wishing her all the best for the interview. Hee-ju thanks them, and then Se-yeon comes there, saying that she doesn't need luck because she will get the job through her skills. Hee-ju asks him what will happen once their families find out, and he tells her to stop living like their servant and do what she wants. In return, she tells him to be ready for the aftermath if she gets a job next to him. The next day, as Se-yeon goes to his office, Jae tells him that they are making some progress with the voice modulator. Also, he has found some new information about Sang-woo, including how he makes a lot of videos about arson and crimes involving explosives, and the fact that he is working as a crime reporter nowadays. Later, it is time for Hee-ju's interview for the job in the presidential office, and the interviewers play one of Se-yeon's old clips to test her skill. However, she has memorized all his interviews and she interprets them perfectly. He was seeing this from his office, so he decided to go there personally to interview her. He asks her if she knew the content of the video already, and she affirms, saying that she practiced with them. Se-yeon decides to try her with other videos, but she has memorized them all. He asks her why she remembers all his videos, and she tells him that she wanted to be a news reporter, so she was obsessed with his videos and practiced the hell out of them to the point that she can predict what he is going to say next based on his lip movements. While the other interviewer has fun hearing her answers, Se-yeon is dead serious, and he decides to test her on some new material she has not heard. He starts talking about a couple that doesn't communicate with each other, and even though they try their best to analyze each other, their relationship is terrible because they have hidden their true feelings for a long time. They both get a bit sentimental during this exchange, and then Se-yeon leaves the room, unable to believe Hee-ju's dedication. Later, Hee-ju gets a message from a nursing home about her dad being admitted there, and she realizes that Se-yeon did this. She goes to the nursing home and finds that it is like a 5-star hotel, and Se-yeon was there in the morning and he helped her dad shave. She starts getting confused because Se-yeon acts cold one moment and is caring in the next moment, and she doesn't know what is happening with him. Meanwhile, in Se-yeon's office, his subordinate tells him that they have evaluated all the candidates that they interviewed, and he wants to learn Se-yeon's view on Hee-ju because he was really curious about her. After thinking about what to say, Se-yeon tells him that he likes her. He then remembers a memory from his childhood when he went to a party thrown by Hee-ju's mom and stepdad. He didn't want to eat fish, but Hee-ju's mom insisted that he eat something, or it would be disrespectful to his hosts. After that, she began scolding Hee-ju for eating too much even when she had not eaten anything. He felt bad for her, so he took her to a quiet place and gave his plate to her. That was the start of their friendship, and now Se-yeon wonders how he did not notice her grow up. Just then, he gets a text from Hee-ju, thanking him for putting her father in another nursing home. She is waiting for his reply, but then she gets another notification. It is from her sister Ina's Instagram, suggesting that she is back in Korea. Hee-ju panics, recalling how Se-yeon told her that she was just a substitute for Ina, and if she returns home someday, he will leave her. She immediately fishes out her modified phone from the garbage and calls Se-yeon, telling him that he should divorce Hee-ju because Ina is back, and it would be better for everyone if he marries her. However, Se-yeon shocks her by revealing that before canceling the marriage and running away, the last person Ina met was him, and they made a deal according to which she can never become his wife. Hee-ju is completely puzzled now, and she cuts the call in a hurry, and moments later, Se-yeon comes home. She hides the phone in the kitchen cabinet and stands near the sink. Se-yeon tells her that she did well in the interview and apologizes for underestimating her. He then tells her that he is going to attend the annual foundation of the Chungwon News Group tomorrow, and that makes Hee-ju wonder if he knows that Ina is back. The next day, they go to the party separately, and Hee-ju's mom drags her to the washroom, asking why her dad was moved from the nursing room. She doesn't care about him, but thinking that Se-yeon knows about him makes her worry because she doesn't want her current husband to find out about her deal. After that, Hee-ju goes to the party, but since she doesn't know anyone there, she goes to the rooftop with a glass of wine and then calls Se-yeon at their usual time. She climbs on the bench for no reason, and when Se-eon picks up the call, she asks how he felt when his fiancée finished and he had to marry her useless mute sister. She says that he must be disappointed to get the useless girl whom no one else would want. She says that Hee-ju is gloomy, asocial, and greedy for money, and Se-eon stays silent. Hee-ju feels hurt, but then suddenly, Se-eon says that his wife is not anything she just said. He says that she is observant and other people are rude to her. As for the greed, he believes that she just loved her mom and did whatever she was told to. He says that a long time ago, he felt repulsed by the greedy and noisy people all around him, and it was Hee-ju who gave him a sense of calm. He tells the kidnapper to not talk bad things about his wife, and Hee-ju starts crying, asking why he treats his wife like she is invisible, and why he told her not to consider them a couple. As she is in the middle of the call, Se-eon also arrives at the rooftop, and he catches Hee-ju red-handed. However, he had not come to the party without his doubts. Earlier, he went to the police station to file a report about the kidnapper's threat against Hee-ju's dad, where the over-eager cops told him how his wife was really scared and panicky. They tell him that she screamed when she was about to vomit, and that shocked Se-eon because it should not be possible. However, when he got the dashcam video of her talking, he felt betrayed and in disbelief. As he came to the party still thinking about that, he found Hee-ju's mom taking her away, and he followed them. He heard their conversation and found that Hee-ju doesn't speak in front of her mom either. When her mom came out, he started escorting her to the party, asking about Hee-ju's mutism. She told her that it was because of a shock, and Se-eon told her that a shock should not last for 20 years. He then told the woman to not forget that Hee-ju is his wife and asked her to treat her with more care. He then returned to the party and saw Hee-ju leaving, so he followed her but got held back by his father-in-law and then got the call from the kidnapper's number. As they kept talking, he arrived at the rooftop, and the story returns to the present. Hee-ju hides her phone immediately on seeing him, and she stumbles as she tries to move back. Se-eon catches her and then yells at her for standing on the bench because it was risky. She suddenly gets a loud hiccup and realizes that her cover is about to be blown. Se-eon asks her why she was on a call when she can't speak and tells her to make a sound. He asks if he should force her, but he can't bring himself to do that. He suddenly gets a call from Jae, and Hee-ju tries to get away from him, but he puts a coat around her and tells her to go down first. After that, he picks up Jae's call, who tells him that he traced the kidnapper's number to the hotel he is in, and that means that the kidnapper is really close to him. Se-eon suddenly starts doubting Hee-ju, but he shakes that thought off his head. However, he fears that the kidnapper may try to harm Hee-ju, so he follows her. Luckily, she is sitting safely in the party. Later, they return home, and Se-eon reminds Hee-ju of the time she was almost bitten by a dog when they were kids, and she didn't let out a single scream. He asks how she could hold it back then, and then says that he will wait to see how long she can keep acting to be mute. Later that night, neither of them can sleep. Se-eon imagines barging into Hee-ju's room and asking her why she betrayed him for the last 20 years and telling her that she could have dropped the act after they got married, but he fears that she will shun him, saying that everyone has their secrets. This fear doesn't let him step out of his room. The next day, he can't focus on work, so he calls one of his married subordinates outside and asks if he and his wife keep secrets from each other. The man can only think of instances when his wife keeps emergency funds without telling him, and he says that every couple has some secrets, but they decide to not pry about them because it gives both of them some breathing room. He thinks that it will be hard for a perfectionist like Se-eon to let go of things, but he tells him that marriage takes effort. On the other hand, Hee-ju and her friends at the Sign Language Center are waiting for the interview results, and when they heard that she passed, they are overjoyed. Hee-ju is overwhelmed by her emotions, so her colleagues give her some time to inform her family. She decides to contact her dad, but then decides to text Se-eon first. However, she can't come up with what to write and accidentally sends a heart eyes emoji that Se-eon reads immediately. His mind is blown by that, so he decides to cancel the welcome dinner for the new sign language interpreters and instead tells his staff to book a 2-day retreat for the weekend. He, too, gets confused about what to reply, so he just congratulates Hee-ju on passing, and she feels better after reading his message. Later, he goes to have lunch in a restaurant with his team, but his entire focus is on his phone, replying to Hee-ju's texts. He then asks his team what gift he should give someone who has got a new job, and Jae gives the best idea by saying that he should gift them a work suit. Se-eon sends Hee-ju a text, calling her to a luxury showroom after work. Hee-ju goes there and the attendant there shows her some suits, and coincidentally, her sister Ina also comes to the same store, but their paths don't cross. Se-eon comes there right in time to make the purchase and then tells Hee-ju to try a fancy dress, but he refuses, saying that it is not her style. However, he spots a dress in the window of a store outside, and Hee-ju seems to like it too. While she tries the dress, Seon gets a call from Jae, who tells him that they managed to decode the modulated voice a bit, and it turns out that the kidnapper is actually a woman. Seon can't believe this and tells him to keep digging, but when Hee-ju comes there wearing the dress, he forgets about the call. He tells her that she looks pretty and that she should have more confidence in herself. They keep staring at each other, and Ina coincidentally watches everything from the window. After that, they decide to eat dinner at some cheap restaurant instead of going somewhere fancy when suddenly Sang-woo texts Hee-ju, congratulating her for her new job. He invites her over for drinks with him and Yuri. Hee-ju wants to refuse, but Seon says that she should go but with him. Soon, the four of them gather for drinks, and after congratulating Hee-ju, Sang-woo immediately gets hostile towards Seon. He asks what they are doing together, but Hee-ju steps in and says that he should focus on congratulating her. Sang-woo says that becoming the interpreter for the presidential office is a big achievement, but her original goal was to become a news anchor. However, that gets the two men to become confrontational again. Hee-ju has to stop them yet again. She tells both of them that her original dream was to be a news anchor, but she is happy with the new job now and then leaves the room frustrated. Outside, she gets a text from her sister that throws her off her game. Since she doesn't return soon, Seon goes to check on her. He sees two sisters walking along the sidewalk, and that reminds him that in their childhood, when he used to tutor Ina, Hee-ju always acted as the interpreter. Just then, he gets a call from Hee-ju as the kidnapper, and while on the call, Seon deduces that Hee-ju was forced to act mute by her mother since Ina became deaf from the incident. Hee-ju is shocked to hear that, and she again asks him if he won't leave his wife if Ina returns. Seon says that he won't, and Hee-ju asks if it is because of pity for the poor girl. He reaches the place where Hee-ju is sitting at this point, and just as he is about to tell his true feelings for her, a car approaches him. Seon freezes like a deer in the headlights, and Hee-ju yells his name as she rushes to save him from the speeding car. They fall to the ground, and then Seon gives her first aid. He takes some time to process that he heard her calling his name just now, but she denies that. He asks her to speak again, telling her that this is her chance to speak out everything she has been holding back for all these years. Despite that, Hee-ju doesn't say anything. Later, as she returns home, she gets a call from an unknown number, which turns out to be the kidnapper, and Hee-ju breaks down on hearing his voice. He tells her that he was in the car that was just about to hit Seon, and seeing how she saved him, he is sure that she doesn't plan to get a divorce now. She asks him why he wants them to get divorced, and he replies that he wants to make Seon suffer because he knows some horrible things he has done. He tells her to hurry up and do something, or Seon is going to know her truth. On the other hand, Ina has not yet gotten a response from Hee-ju, so she is planning something too. The next day, as Hee-ju goes to the office on her first day, the president's press secretary greets all the new recruits. When he learns that Hee-ju can't speak, he asks how she is going to communicate with others. Seon says that he will learn sign language and ensure that everyone is interpreting their words correctly, because that was what Hee-ju advised him to do during the interview. The secretary likes the idea because that means more positive reviews from the people. Later, Hee-ju decides to teach him sign language, but he has already memorized the alphabet as his homework. She asks him to write the phrase he wants to learn, and the first thing he asks her to teach is how to sign her name and that he looks forward to working with her. At night, the entire team goes on a dinner, and everyone is shocked because it is Seon's first time joining them. However, he quickly surprises them with his grilling skills. Jae gets a call and leaves for a moment, and then he returns to call Seon out too. He tells him that he finished decoding the modulated voice, but the quality is not so clear. The voice sounds a lot like Hee-ju, and Seon starts connecting the dots, and he tells Jae that he will send another audio to compare to this voice. He then returns to the dinner and gets drunk soon, so a valet has to drive him home. Hee-ju returns soon after, and she finds Seon passed out in his car. She tries to wake him up, but when he doesn't, she supports him and takes him to their home. They stumble and fall to the ground, and Hee-ju lands right on top of Seon, their lips touching by accident. She is too shocked to move, and Seon wakes up by the time she gets away from him. Seon sees a dream in which he is just a boy and someone is dunking him in the water again and again. He tries coming out, but the man pushes him into the pond, and then he starts sinking. The dream ends with that, and he comes back to his senses, but surprisingly, his hands feel heavy. He looks to his side, and to his shock, Hee-ju is sleeping peacefully there. When she wakes up, both of them separate in a hurry because they had fallen asleep right on the floor last night. Later, as they have breakfast, Seon asks Hee-ju what they were doing on the floor together because his memories are hazy. Hee-ju hesitates to give an answer, and then Jae calls Seon. He tells him that he sent the result of the voice test last night, and it was a 99% match. This shakes Saeon's world, as he now knows Hee-ju was calling him while pretending to be the kidnapper. He goes to Jae, who has prepared a full flowchart about the calls he received and the incidents surrounding them. But Saeon tells him that the caller and the kidnapper are not partners, but they are somehow connected. As he thinks about the calls and the things she said to him, he realizes that Hee-ju was testing him, and he couldn't realize it earlier despite there being clear hints. Later that day, as it is time for him to learn sign language, he gives Hee-ju a long list of words he wants to learn, including anger, lies, and forgiveness. He can't focus, so he calls off the lesson and leaves the room, and then Hee-ju gets a text from Ina again, saying that they should meet up today. Hee-ju goes to meet her in an aquarium, the memories of their strange childhood resurfacing in her mind. However, Ina turns around cheerfully to see her and starts speaking to her. Hee-ju is shocked because she lost her voice when she lost her hearing, but Ina tells her that she got a surgery to fix it. She then asks Hee-ju why she is still pretending to be mute, because she knows that she could speak the entire time. Hee-ju feels betrayed on hearing this and walks out, but Ina stops her. She apologizes for doing this to her, because she knows that Hee-ju acted to be mute because of her, and she let that happen since she didn't want to suffer alone. She tells her that she can speak now, but Hee-ju lashes out at her in sign language, saying that no one else decides her life. She walks away angrily and doesn't receive Ina's calls. However, Ina texts her to tell her a secret about Saeon. She says that she didn't dump her on Saeon, but he asked to marry Hee-ju in exchange for letting her go. Hee-ju drives home impatiently, while Saeon tries to look for the device she used to call him as the kidnapper, but she returns soon and stops him. He makes the excuse that he lost his phone, and she calls his number to find it. However, Saeon finds the seductive lingerie in her drawer, and while he teases her about it, both of them fall on the bed. Seeing her so close, Saeon starts to remember the kiss, and he runs outside in a panic, while Hee-ju takes out her phone. Outside, Saeon runs to get the impure thoughts out of his mind when Hee-ju calls him from the kidnapper's number. Saeon says that he was just waiting for the call, because he has started to look forward to their daily conversations. He says that he wants to learn a lot about him, and for that, they are going to ask each other questions in turn and give a truthful answer. Hee-ju agrees and then asks the first question. She wants to know if the deal Saeon made with Ina before the marriage concerned Hee-ju, and he affirms before taking his chance. He asks if Hee-ju is being threatened right now, and her answer is both no and yes at the same time. Next, she asks if he married Hee-ju just as a hostage to let Ina go free, and he affirms. He begins telling her about his nightmares and how seeing Hee-ju was the only thing that could help him calm down. He knew that she had no one to rely on, and her house was like a prison, so he wanted her to escape, but in the end, he became her new captor, and she had to ally with a nasty man to get free from him. He then asks her if Hee-ju still wants a divorce, and she says that for the longest time she hoped that things would get better between them, but nothing happened, and she lost hope. She says that she doesn't want to get her hopes up now because they are going to be shattered anyway, and Saeon replies that he can give her the sincerity, attention, and affection she wants. He says that he acted cold to Hee-ju this entire time because he thought he would have to let her go one day, and he didn't want them to get attached. However, now that he knows her feelings, it changes everything. He tells Hee-ju that he will promise to make an effort and change things between them, and in return, she won't make this call to him again. The flustered Hee-ju tells him that it depends on his efforts and cuts the call. The next day, it is time for their team retreat, and Saeon has prepared heart-themed lunchboxes for everyone. In the bus, he scares away the guy sitting next to Hee-ju and sits in his place. Hee-ju falls asleep on his shoulder soon, and Saeon tries to pull down the curtains, but they are too far, so he shades from the sun using his hand. However, his subordinate's weird ringtone startles him, so he pushes Hee-ju away. Later, they get to their lodging and decide to play some games, and Saeon uses his influence to team up with Hee-ju. They play some games, and when they win, Saeon lifts Hee-ju in his arms but then gets embarrassed because everyone is judging him now. As his reward for winning, he just gets some pictures clicked, and the man clicking the pictures becomes suspicious based on the amount of effort Saeon is putting in. After that, they go hiking, and Saeon and Hee-ju leave everyone behind. They reach the hilltop with a great view, and as they are about to click a group photo, a bunch of middle-aged men and women swarm Saeon because they are his fans. They push everyone away, and because of that, Hee-ju falls off the cliff. Saeon panics and goes down to find her even before the rescue team arrives. He tells them to deploy the sniffer dogs and asks them to hurry because things can get worse after sundown. He keeps calling her desperately, but she is out cold and her phone is broken. Hee-ju comes to her senses later at night, and luckily she is not so seriously injured despite the steep fall. As she props herself up against a rock, she remembers that someone deliberately pushed her, and it was not an accident. Her phone is broken, but fortunately she has brought the modified phone along. She tries calling emergency numbers, but the phone is not made for that, and it can only contact Saeon. At the same time, Saeon is desperately searching for Hee-ju alongside the rescue team. Hee-ju doesn't want to call him, because she still thinks that he has doubts about the identity of the caller, but she realizes that this is the only way for her to survive. She realizes that she should have confessed to him earlier, and then takes the leap of faith. She calls him, and Saeon picks up immediately, asking, "Where is she?" He tries to act like he is speaking to the kidnapper, and not her, and indirectly instructs her to use a signal flare that was inside the first aid kit. He keeps saying how scared he is right now, and Hee-ju struggles to open the bag and fetch the flare. She shoots it, revealing her location, and Saeon runs towards her, promising that he will find her and keep her safe this time. That's all for this video, but the story is not over yet. If you want to see what happens next, leave likes and comments on the video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss the next part.